Welcome to the Mike Abadir Show. You'll want to sit tight this hour as host Mike Abadir and co-host Gino Bacola talk to the experts, celebrities, and figures from the worlds of sports and business of sports. We cover the NFL, baseball, basketball, soccer, and horse racing, so we have all of the bases covered. Now, we just need your participation. Here is your host, Mike Abadir.
Man, that music gets me pumped up. Hello, everyone. This is the premier program for the Mike Abadir Show, and I am Mike Abadir, as well as the host of this show. Today is a great day, not just because it's the first show, but also because we will be joined in a few minutes by Raiders legend Morris Bradshaw. So I'm stoked and looking forward to discussing all things silver and black. Before we get to Mo, I want to set the table at the top of the show, get some of the basics out of the way. We are predominantly an interview-based show, but hey, listen, you guys out there, the listeners, are very much appreciated and encouraged to interact with us. I will try to get to as many tweets, emails, and questions as possible. And if we have some time, we might be able to take a call or two and see what Mo thinks about this upcoming season, Las Vegas, and some of the issues going on with the NFL right now. So here's how to get a hold of me. The call-in number is toll-free, 1-888-346-9144. Once again, toll-free, 1-888-346-9144. Email us at mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Give me your name and where you're from in the subject line. For those of you who don't know, the last name is spelled Abadir. Mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Tweet me at Mike Abadir. All right, next week, our guest will be Todd Schrupp, longtime television host with TVG, the Horse Racing Network, and I will be accompanied by my man, co-host Gino Bacola. So that should be a lot of fun talking horse racing with those guys. All righty, let's get into it. Our first guest is someone I go way back with, all the way back to the second year of the Raiders' existence in the second time around, I should say, in Oakland, to be exact. This is back when people still read newspapers, and I remember when my guest had to make a case as to why the Raiders should have something called a website in place. At this time, there were some people who even suggested out there that voodoo spells played a role in whether the Raiders won or lost ball games, if you could believe that. So Mo and I, that's an inside joke between us, and maybe we'll break that down a little bit too. He is a two-time Super Bowl champion and a true Raider all the way around. He's been with the organization since 1974 when he was selected in the fourth round of the NFL draft out of The Ohio State University. He went on to play 9 seasons in the NFL and is currently the Raiders senior administrator. He also serves as the director of alumni relations. More than all of that, he is a man that I have great respect and admiration for, and someone I consider a very dear friend. Morris Bradshaw, how are you, my man?
Hey, good morning, Mike. Excuse me.
Good morning.
Doing well, especially after that intro. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure it brought back a few memories, right?
It absolutely. It's been a while, man, since we started on that journey.
Yes, it has, and it's been a good journey, definitely. And I know the journey took you to Las Vegas, and we'll get more into Las Vegas in a little bit. But first of all, thank you for coming on with us on a game day. I'm sure you've got a very packed schedule, so for you to be able to spend some time with us, it's an honor for me to have you.
Well, thanks, Mike, and you know how I feel about you, and I'm just completely honored to be your first guest on your inaugural show. So for you, buddy, we can figure it out.
Hey, that means a lot to me. So let's get right to it. Before we get to this promising 2017 campaign, let's take a look back at some of the best teams that built the profile and the aura of the Raiders for years and generations to come. I'm talking about the Raiders' glory years of the 70s. Mo, as a player, you were on some amazing teams led by legendary head coach John Madden. So let's set the table here. Between the years of 70 and 77, the team was in the middle of a historic run, which included 6 division titles, appearances in 6 AFC championship games. And then in 1976, you guys went 13-1 in the regular season, went on to win the first Super Bowl by crushing Minnesota 32-14 in Super Bowl 11. So here's my question. Although it was a great playoff run during that time, great playoff run appearance-wise, the Raiders had been eliminated before you guys won the Super Bowl in 5 AFC championship games prior to that. So when you guys entered that 76 season, was there some pressure to kind of get over the hump? And ultimately, you guys defeated the 2-time reigning Super Bowl winner, Pittsburgh Steelers, bitter rival of yours. How was that experience as a third-year player and to win in such dominating fashion? And what was the pressure like? And just kind of walk us through that season and that time period.
Well, I'm not sure, how much pressure there was to win that game. I think coming here when I did, Mike, in 1974, and the success that the Raiders had up until that point, I was young, inexperienced, very in awe, if you will, of even being in the National Football League. I was a follower. We had some great examples to follow here. Fred Blitnikoff, Gene Upshaw, Willie Brown, to name a few, Jim Otto. But in those years leading up to 76, we were, my rookie year, we finished 12-2 the regular season. And it's a great trivia question because we didn't win the Super Bowl that year, but that was the best single season record for that season, 74. 75, we were 11-3, and we were eliminated by Pittsburgh again in the AFC Championship game. And then in 76, as you stated, we beat Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game here in Oakland, and then we went on and beat the Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl. Looking back on it, after spending a few years in the league, I have a philosophy in life that I've developed that, timing is everything. And being in the right place at the right time. And I think that's what happened for myself coming to the Raiders. Mark Van Eegen, Dave Casper, Henry Lawrence. Henry was number 1. Dave Casper was number 2, draft choice. Mark Van Eegen was number 3. I was number 4. And when you look back at our careers and what we added, we came to a pretty well-established team that was having some issues, always losing to an eventual AFL at that, or AFC Super Bowl champion. And it was Miami at one point, then Pittsburgh, but the Raiders were always in the mix. So it was just a great opportunity, looking back on it, and it was very timely. Happy to have been available, and certainly more than happy that the Raiders made a good choice.
Sure, absolutely. And you mentioned a lot of guys, and the defensive side of the ball was stacked. Obviously, as a wide receiver, and playing a role in special teams and things of that nature. You guys really had a fantastic offense. I mean, that year, Kenny Stabler led the AFC in passing. You had Cliff Branch, Blitnikoff, yourself, Casper, the tight end, as you mentioned, and Mark Van Eegen and Clarence Davis in the backfield. And that O-line, filled with Hall of Famers, especially on that left side, anchored by Shell and Gene Upshaw, and the center, Dave Dalby. I mean, what was it like being a part of that?
Well, it was fantastic. But as I said, that was my third year. 76 was my third year in the league. I don't know how much I think we set a record in the NFL for total yards in a season. And we also may have set a record for average yards per game, rushing. Passing, the league was much different then than it is today. You almost threw when you wanted to in that era, and today, people lead with the pass. So it was outstanding. My rookie year, 74, I was injured, and I had no receptions, no stats. Came back in 75, though, and I had 7 receptions. 4 of them were for touchdowns. And I think I averaged 25 yards a catch, and pretty big. But I was a deep threat then, and when you got opportunities to play, late in the game or what have you, it was you weren't going against the frontline guys. Naturally, after a season like that, I started thinking that okay, I'm worthy. And you naturally think that the next season is going to be even better. In 76, we ended up in the Super Bowl winning, but I only caught 1 pass that year. It was for a touchdown, but not something I was happy with personally. But overall, team-wise, we won the Super Bowl. It doesn't get much better than that. So for me personally, Mike, it was awesome. My whole experience here with the Raiders has just been incredible. It's the best way to put it. Absolutely incredible.
It sounds like it. And, before we move on from that Super Bowl and that season, we got about 2 minutes before we take our first break here. For those who don't realize how epic of a Super Bowl matchup that was, there were 10 Raiders who would become future Hall of Famers out of that game. Mm-hmm. 8 players, plus the owner, Mr. Al Davis, and John Madden, would all become Hall of Famers. And then on the other side, there were 7 Vikings, 6 players, plus the head coach, Bud Grant. I mean, at that time, did you guys realize that, you were in the midst of 18 Hall of Famers in a Super Bowl game? There has to be some sort of record.
Well, nobody was a Hall of Famer at that time, and I'm fairly certain that that probably wasn't the number one thing on most guys' minds.
Sure.
We were just out playing and trying to win football games. You mentioned the amount of talent that was here with the Raiders, and as I said, I basically just followed. Everybody seemed to know where they were going, and I wanted to be there with them. So it seemed to work, But it was a great group, and as I said, the timeliness of it. That year, 76, our regular season, we were 13-1, and we lost one game to the New England Patriots that year. And but it was just an awesome football team. And one never knows, where you are or what you've been doing. And this is great for me because we're looking back on things, and I have a totally different perspective from my viewpoint right now.
Sure.
But it was just timing is everything, Mike.
Absolutely. And speaking of timing, we got about a minute here before we get to our first break. How sweet is it that the snake finally got his due?
Well, it's bittersweet. From my perspective, I would say for his family, they're elated to finally, have that recognition. I hope not a lot of other people think the way that I do, but it was just. It's almost like we had to wait for him to die, and because his stats didn't change. His impact on the game didn't change. Maybe it was because there were only a few slots, and it's the process that the Hall of Fame goes through. Looking back, deserving, absolutely. The timing of it though was just a little difficult. It makes you just think a little bit outside the box. That's all.
Absolutely.
It makes me think that way anyway.
Sure. That's some raw. I could tell that it brings up a lot of thoughts, emotions, feelings. Close teammate of yours, but we're thankful that he's made it into the Hall of Fame, and thankful that his family got to experience that. I wish he had an opportunity to experience that in person. But on the other side of the break, let's continue with this conversation because I want to ask you a few questions and even give you a trivia question. See what you remember from that Super Bowl in Pasadena. Great. So we'll be back in a few moments here, and our guest is Morris Bradshaw of the Oakland Raiders. We'll see you guys in a few short seconds.
Your internet flagship station for sports, Voice America Sports.
Life is complicated, and sometimes we all need a little help, but don't have the time for a full hour-long session or don't know who to turn to. That's where BetterHelp comes into play. With BetterHelp, I can get matched with one of over 2,500 licensed and approved counselors and therapists and get help anytime, anywhere, totally private. For a flat weekly fee starting at $35, I can connect with my counselor via text, chat, video conference, or phone, which is great for me because I'm always on the go. And I can go back to previous sessions whenever I want want through my secure account from anywhere in the world. It's a great feeling to know that help is there, affordable, private, and convenient to my schedule. We all can use a little help. Visit betterhelp.com/VA Health and register for free. You can try it for 7 days without being charged on your credit card and get matched with a licensed counselor usually within 24 hours. Get BetterHelp today at betterhelp.com/VA Health.
If you're looking for more information on firearms and the shooting sports, check out Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. Kelly is the owner of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks with over 40 years of experience. Now he's ready to share some industry luminaries and their perspectives with you. If you're interested in firearms, whether it be for shooting, for fun, competition, hunting, or self-defense, Kelly is here to share his wisdom and experience. Listen live for Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan, Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Sports Channel.
This is the Mike Abadir Show. If you want to call in today, we can be reached at 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or send an email to mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Raider Nation, we have Raiders legend Morris Bradshaw talking all things Raiders. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you heard the number, you've got the email, tweet me at Mike Abadir. So, Mo, let's get back to where we left off, which is talking about the Super Bowl runs and Kenny Stabler finally getting his due and being inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. You know, let's kind of shift the focus a little bit to John Madden. I've got some younger cousins who think that Madden is just a name for a video game. What made John Madden great as a leader and also from an X's and O's perspective?
Well, I can give you the Mo Bradshaw version. I'm
Please.
sure there are others, and my interaction and relationship with John was the first 5 years of my career, Coach Madden. And as I said, those first 5 years, I was basically you followed the group, so there wasn't a lot of interaction. I know Dave Casper, I think, explains it the best way that a lot of fans think we all got along and hung out together and that whole deal, but with the coach. If he talked to you or called you in his office, it's like going to the principal's office. It just didn't look good. So John was awesome. I think for me personally, his number one attribute was at that time was his ability to communicate with everyone, and it's something that I still think about today in the business world, dealing with different personalities. We had not only did we have a lot of different personalities, but you were, I don't want to say you were encouraged, but you were not discouraged in being who you were. And the amazing thing about that, Mike, for me is that you had these, 45 guys, 50 guys, that practice, and everybody came from a different background, maybe, whether, geographically, spiritually, racially. But this amazing thing about the Raiders was that on game day, at game time, everybody was one. And everybody was for one purpose, and that was to win. And that just sticks out in my mind. Today's team, under Coach Del Rio, I see a lot of the similarities there. But I think that, one thing in talking about Coach Madden, that would be the one thing that just jumps out. His ability to communicate and allowing guys to be themselves, but allowing them to be for one purpose, or encouraging them and getting us all to be of one purpose at game time.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because communication is what he brought to the table, and he parlayed that skill set into an equally successful post-coaching career as a communicator on television, right?
Very nice. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Yep. And now his video game communicates to all the kids.
Well, yeah, a quick little story about his video game. So a number of years ago, not too long ago, I did some volunteer work for a nonprofit over in Oakland, and it was it was called First Step. But anyway, it was run by two nuns, and they provided tutoring. And most of the folks that were there were looking to finish their GEDs, and you had a lot of professionals, lawyers, accountants that would come in and tutor. And I was given an opportunity and asked to come in, and I guess my role was more of a life coach, speaking to a group of men for about an hour, 1 week a day, just about life, and maybe trying to do a little pep talk and encouraging them to continue on their endeavor and congratulating them, number one, for taking these steps. And one of the analogies that I tried to draw with this group was with Coach Madden as a football coach. And I told the story, and I got no reaction in the room at all. And then the video game came up, and it dawned on me then that none of these kids in the room were old enough to remember Coach Madden as a football coach. And they vaguely remembered him as a broadcaster, but they all knew him for his video game.
Of course. Well, he wasn't on if he wasn't on their fantasy team, then he better be on their video game console if they're going to remember him, right?
Yeah. So he kind of took that ability to communicate, and I made a very, very nice broadcasting career out of it. So,
absolutely. Hey, is he still involved with the team? And if so, how involved is he?
Well, I don't know. I do not believe he's involved in day-to-day operations. I would think that if Mark Davis had a concern or had a question or needed some advice, that Coach Madden's phone and ear would be readily available to him.
Sure.
But as far as him, being around and every day, I think he's respectful of the folks that are here today. But if any one of us or anyone here had a question or needed Coach, I think we all know how to reach him. But I don't believe he's involved day to day. And he's got his own life and his own concerns, I think, and the Raiders are probably part of that. Not all of that, but they're probably part of it.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be interested to find out a little bit more about how he feels about the ring to the name Las Vegas Raiders. It's probably a little bit foreign, at least when he first heard it. But I know he's a Raider for life, so I'm sure he supports the team regardless of where the team is actually playing.
I would think so. Yes.
Yeah. So before we get to the 1980s Super Bowl and your time with Coach Flores, I do have a trivia question for you, and we're going to put you on the spot here a little bit. So I know you were in the locker room during that halftime show in 1976 Super Bowl. Do you remember who the halftime show was?
I have no idea.
Okay, this is going to show you how much times have changed. Are you ready for this? The halftime show was produced by Disney and based on It's a Small World, and it included the LA Unified All-City Band. How about that for a halftime show?
Wow.
Not quite Prince or Madonna or Bruno Mars or Michael Jackson, huh?
Well, since Beyonce knocked out all the electricals, we've come a long way, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some other interesting tidbits that I kind of looked into when I was refreshing my memory about that game. Obviously, that was played in Pasadena in front of 103,000 fans, over 103,000 fans. But what I found peculiar was that the start time to the game was 12:47 p.m. I thought that was interesting. When I look back at that game, one of the things that really stands out to me was Willie Brown's 75-yard INT return to kind of really ice the game, and that really was just a fantastic Super Bowl. And Obviously, the Snake Kenny Stabler became the first southpaw lefty quarterback to win a Super Bowl, not to be matched until Steve Young did it, 18, 20 years later, something like that. And then the other interesting thing that I was reading the other day was that the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Bud Grant, not only did he play in the NFL for the Philadelphia Eagles and the CFL for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but he played for the Minneapolis Lakers. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
Yeah.
He's interesting. Well, these were all interesting people coming
Yes.
along at that time, and very talented. But, we didn't have the social media or the media coverage that we have today. And, everybody is, today, we're looking for content. We're looking for stories. And, that's where I think these little tidbits about, who people really are other than who we think they are comes into play.
That's very true. That's very true. And, before we get to our next break, let's at least start exploring the Super Bowl from the 1980 campaign. It's interesting to me because you experienced being a player with the swirling talks of a lingering move at that time from Oakland to LA. And once again, we'll get to the Vegas move a bit later, but what are your memories of playing in that environment?
Well, as a player, I don't think you get caught up in that conversation as much, because the reality of it is your situation could be transient anyway, and that's what kind of sort of happened to me. We were, and I think the Raiders did a very good job of, and Al Davis, Mr. Davis, they did a very good job of keeping distractions away from the team, and keeping everyone focused on the task at hand, and that was who we were playing and winning. And I've always admired the Raiders for that ability to focus. And again, as a player, we have families, we have lives, we have concerns. But my deal was in '82. My wife, we had some interesting conversations about the move, and the reality of it was I ended up in New England, and my wife and my family stayed here, and before we were all talking about going to L.A. or stay here in Alameda or what have you. So again, I think that supports that you can't, as a player, it's a team and you're playing to win. And you don't really get caught up in the life cycle of it. I know family is and your spouse, your kids, they adapt. I hope that's not, I don't mean to sound callous or what have you, but it is a business. And I think from a player's perspective, that's where I was at. Now, my perspective today is different, but my viewpoint is different. And,
sure.
Maybe we'll pick that up a little later too. But I think, as a player, regardless of whether it was back in my era or even today, the focus is winning football games. And we went way too long here not winning football games. We went way too long. So it feels good.
Absolutely. And we're heading into a commercial break in a second here, but I'll tell you this. As an NFL agent, I work with players, athletes, NFL players who experience a franchise moving all the time, right? Their own franchise, their own family, like you suggested. I know it's different when a team is relocating, but hey, if you're cut, if you get signed as a free agent, if you're traded, that's your franchise moving. That's your own personal franchise moving from one place to another. So I expect that the current squad will be well equipped to be able to handle this move to Las Vegas. And it's very interesting to get your perspective on the mindset back in 1982, because I don't know if it's much different today. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue speaking with Morris about the Super Bowl team that won as a wild card. And then we'll shift the focus a little bit to today's issues confronting the NFL the promising 2017 NFL campaign for the Raiders, and many, many more things with Morris Bradshaw. We'll be right back.
Your internet flagship station for sports. Voice America Sports.
I'm busy and so is my family. Leftover pizza and unhealthy takeout isn't really doing it for us anymore. Just ask my bathroom scale. That all changed when I found Freshly. For less than $10 a meal, Freshly delivers 6 meals a week, always fresh, never frozen, prepared by top chefs and nutritionists using the best, freshest, gluten-free ingredients. The best part is the menu is always new and fresh, just like the food, and it only takes 3 minutes for me to prepare breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and there's no messy cleanup and no dishes. My family loves the choices and the taste, and Freshly delivers to my home and my office, so I eat healthy all day, every day. If you're tired of the same old cardboard delivery and takeout, try out Freshly.com today and save $20 on your first order using coupon code VAH639 at Freshly.com. Your taste buds and your scale will thank you. So save $20 today with coupon code VAH639 at Freshly.com.
Tune in to the Voice America Variety channel on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. Voice America Variety broadcasts a diverse array of topics, reaching a global community. Our experts come from all walks of life, and the topics they discuss are everything from current events, arts and entertainment, leadership, parenting, relationships, self-improvement, career advice, and a variety of other topics. Check us out today. You're sure to find something of interest. Voice America Variety. Talk on today's hot topics.
This is the Mike Abadir Show. If you want to call in today, we can be reached at 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or send an email to mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back. We are joined by Raiders great Morris Bradshaw, and we are taking a trip down memory lane, covering some of the epic moments in Raiders history from the 1970s and early 80s, talking about legendary players, teams, Hall of Famers, events, things that really shaped the history of the NFL and how we know it today. Once again, you heard the call-in number, 888-346-9144. Email me, mike@themikeabadirshow.com, or tweet me at Mike Abadir, Abadir. Morris, let's get back to it. We were finishing up before the break, talking about the 1980 season and being the first wild card team that ever won the Super Bowl. To me, the irony of that season was this. So Al Davis traded Stabler to Houston for Dan Pastorini, who would end up getting hurt during the season and getting replaced by Jim Plunkett, who would then go on to beat Stabler and the Oilers in the playoffs. Sounds like an unbelievable season. I mean, you couldn't even script it narrative-wise to be any more intriguing.
Well, I'm sure that that type of intrigue may exist, and probably does exist with other franchises, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA. But around the Raiders, we I don't know, the mystique, we tend to do it more than anyone else. And that year, as you stated, Snake was in Houston along with Jack Tatum, and then part of that trade also was Kenny King. And Jack Tatum. So I'm sure Kenny has his perspective on what that game meant. We kind of were we were a better football team at that point, and we were growing. We were getting better with each game that year. It was ironic that we ended up playing them, but I guess it was also. I guess it was in the cards, prophetic. But later, we end up going back to the Super Bowl and playing Tampa. and had traded John Gruden to Tampa during the off season, and ended up playing Tampa in the Super Bowl. I look at Coach Del Rio growing up here in the Bay Area, and a Raiders fan, and now all of a sudden he's the head coach of the team here. I don't know. There's just Mark Davis growing up with his dad around the team, and he eventually becomes the owner of the team. A lot of great stories. I don't know if other teams have that many, but I don't know, Mike. It does seem a little strange.
Well, I would say that it's a very short list of teams that have the history, the winning tradition. I know for during my time period with the Raiders, I remember one of the things that really stood out was having success in each of the decades. I know there was a little bit of a lull and a gap between the early 2000s and the time period that we're in right now, but collectively, from beginning of the franchise's start date till today, there are very few teams that have the lore that the Raiders have. Some teams have some recent history or some middle of the NFL, year, in the 80s type history or that type of thing. But from top to bottom, very few teams can match that. And being that that's the case, I know that there are a lot of Raider alums, and I'd like to spend some time talking about the Raider alums in a few minutes here. But I wanted to ask you, whether it be teammates, alums, friends from around the league, and I know this is a little bit of a difficult subject matter for guys maybe to open up about, but are you finding that guys are opening up a little bit more about their health issues, whether it be, hips, knees, joints, shoulders, etc., or maybe mental health issues or severe issues relating to CTE? Are guys starting to open up a little bit and have candid conversations amongst themselves or amongst the fellow former teammates and colleagues, or is that still kind of slowly coming out?
I believe we progressed in that area. It is a difficult topic for men, I think, to talk about your health, even with family members, and to talk about your personal finances. I think for way too long, the NFL did not do a good job of embracing its former players, and I think a lot of guys were scarred by that and became very distrustful of the National Football League. And I'd say in many cases, rightly so.
Sure.
Now, in contrast to that, today, I think the NFL is doing a fantastic job of being involved in the dialogue. I think we do have more guys that have been able to get assistance. And, if it's good or bad, a lot of the guys they'll talk to one another. And I think they'll talk to one another before they'll talk to anyone else. So in that regard, I would like to believe that, we have progressed, but I can't help saying right behind that we've still got a long, long way to go.
Sure.
There is a stigma attached to, I think, a stigma with a lot of guys, whether we're talking about, concussions or, just your general well-being. I think the NFL it has taken the initiative that for too long the stories that were out were all negative about our guys, bad things that had happened, and we really weren't talking about, so I think general public starts thinking that, everybody is, in financial dire straits or they have bad health. And I think there's a campaign now with the National Football League to talk about some positive stories, that we do have guys that have gone on to become U.S. senators. We have a congressman, I believe, it's congressman, and one of our former players, Napoleon Harris, in Chicago, state of Illinois. We've had, it escapes me now, but we've had other instances of guys going on and participating either at a government level or some other professional level, lawyer, doctors, But our society today, these are positive stories, and they don't sell newspapers, and they don't garner any interest. The more sex, drugs, rock and roll, if you will, as a lure, our society seems to have an appetite for that.
Absolutely.
So, having said all that, I think I'd like to commend the NFL at this point, anyway, of their involvement, their participation, their listening. But again, we've got a long, long way to go.
Yes, we do. And you mentioned newspapers a second ago. Not sure if you saw this, but there was an article in yesterday's New York Times which stated that ex-ESPN college football commentator Ed Cunningham, who is a former NFL player, resigned from his position. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said he resigned because he could no longer support football due to the revelations about brain trauma and what he had seen from former teammates like Dave Duerson go through. What do you think when you hear things like that, or when you hear about early retirement for players due to health concerns and things of that nature?
Well, it encourages me, and to the point that there is dialogue, and the dialogue is having an effect. I'd have to commend the young man for taking a stance, and not just verbally saying it, but backing it up. It's his choice. It brings a certain amount of attention. I don't know if he did it to bring attention, or if it's just a personal. It sounds like it's more of a personal deal that. I don't know what his background is. I don't know, any injuries. I don't know what all he's seen, but based on the action that he has taken, I would say that he's seen enough.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's kind of basing that just on, a moral stance more than anything else, wanting to, take a position, and he's in a unique opportunity where he can leave a really sweet job. He said he loved the job. He said there's no other job that I'd rather have. So, salute to him for being courageous enough and being in a position to do that, right?
Yeah. There was a young man with the 49ers here 2 years ago, I think, that, was it Borland? Is that his name?
Yes.
I apologize if I messed that up, but I think his stance was that he had a pretty good, I think it was after his rookie year, he had a pretty good season, and he decided to retire.
Yeah, he was probably one of the more up-and-coming linebackers and had a fantastic season. Yeah, I'm sorry to interject, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know, we see the back end of it. I don't know what all he saw or what all he's experienced to have him draw that conclusion, but it must have been pretty profound.
Sure.
And I support it, but I support his decision, and it is his decision. I don't know, being under the same circumstances, but our life situations, we're all different. We're all motivated differently. In many cases, I think we could be motivated similarly, but at the end of the day, we all grow up, a little different, different goals. I grew up in an era where I never thought we could have a black president. So, things change, perspectives change, viewpoints change. But I'm a strong believer, as long as there's dialogue, there's a chance. But when you're not talking, I don't know, it just makes it tougher.
No, you're exactly right. And speaking of changes, quick question for you before we go to break, and we may have to answer it on the back half. But, when you played, professional football was much more violent. And that violence, the rawness of football, was not only celebrated, but it popularized the sport during a time that the competition with baseball was fierce, the national pastime. Mm-hmm. Whether we knew it and didn't care, or whether we ignored the possibilities, the fans really soaked it up when guys got leveled and helmets flew off. My question to you, which I'll have you answer on the other side of the break, is, although that physical nature can never be truly legislated out of the game, at what point do we get to where we say the game has softened to the point where it's materially changed? and what made it so good to begin with is then gone. We'll get to that right after this. Thank you for joining us on the Mike Abadir Show with Morris Bradshaw.
Your internet flagship station for sports, Voice America Sports.
Sports continues to grow and evolve to ever-increasing prominence in today's society. On All Around Sports, host John Inglesby will connect with the leading newsmakers from the sports world, including players, owners, and fellow sports journalists, discussing the top news and events that are relevant to sports today. John will also report from and offer his experience of the world's top sports events. Tune in to All Around Sports with John Inglesby on Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Sports Channel.
Check your feelings at the door and enter the Man Cave. Don't let the name fool you, because we're here for anybody that wants to talk and listen in. Host J.D. Harris and friends are here to lead the forum from the fans, former players, owners, execs, and coaches. While inside the Man Cave, you do whatever you like. We won't judge. We'll even go beyond sports to talk technology, current events, and entertainment. Tune in every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Sports Channel.
Okay, sports fans, here's your opportunity to discuss football, America's favorite sport. On an annual basis, millions of people attend, watch, and listen to football, both pro and college. Ray Ellis Sports, an internet talk radio show, was developed with the fan in mind. Join host, former Philadelphia Eagles and Cleveland Browns strong safety Ray Ellis on Voice America Sports every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for exciting, interactive football discussions from the fans' perspective. Tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific to Ray Ellis Sports right here on the Voice America Network, and let's talk football.
This is the Mike Abadir Show. If you want to call in today, we can be reached at 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or send an email to mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Sitting here with Morris Bradshaw of the Oakland Raiders, talking football, the Raiders past, present, and future. Man, I'll tell you, I wish we had 2 hours with you, Mo, because this hour is flying by. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more rapid fire because I still have a lot of things I want to get to with you. I think you were about to quickly jump in with answering my question regarding whether football has softened to the point to the detriment of the sport.
If I would say that it is softened to the detriment of the sport, I would agree that in some regards the game has softened. It is different today. I think the game is played differently. I think it's coached differently. It's officiated differently. And it's going to continue to change. My era, there was no fantasy football. We didn't have 24-hour sports programming. You kind of got your football. Monday Night Football became a novelty. That you were, you hustled home from work on Mondays, and it became even Monday Night Football became bigger than Sunday football. Mainly because it was the only game on at that time. And the NFL, right or wrong, good or bad, did an outstanding job in my opinion, of promoting that aspect of it. Now, today, there's fantasy football and, the Madden football game, which I never became a real big fan of, mainly because it was too realistic. And what I mean by that is, it in my opinion, it may have helped to discourage some of our youth not to actually go out and experience the playing of the sport, but just sitting and living the reality, if you will, through a video game.
I think that video games in general are preventing kids from just playing sports more than in the past.
Well, but their sense of engagement, if you will, I think has changed, and the detriment to that is I've always felt that any team sport is good. not everybody's going to become the professional athlete, but team sports it taught me, and I think it teaches us, how to work with other people, how to communicate better, how to when someone is relying on you to get to hold your end up. One of the things with the Raiders as a younger player that we talked about a lot, and what our motivations were, and one was that you just didn't want to let your teammates down. And that's what happens inside of a team. Look at the Golden State Warriors and look at how they're playing and how unselfish they are on the court. But then I also hear stories, and I've talked to several people about how well they all get along off the court. So it's not just something you turn on and off. It's something that you do and practice on a daily basis. So to getting back to answer your question, though, yes, I think the game has changed. One could say it has softened, but then again, I know guys and that are having some issues. I know many more guys that are concerned. I even find myself sometimes, I forget, I'm getting busy, and you forget, where you're going here in the office. You generally pick it up, but these things, you say, hey, is this normal, or because I've been doing this for a while, or is this something I need to pay attention to? So, it is, top of brain. I still, think it's a great sport for a lot of other reasons, character building, all of those things. And I'm hoping that we can continue to build on that, and I hope the game doesn't just go away, but based on the appetite, I think, of the general public and what folks want, they will dictate what their interactions are going to be.
Sure. Well, this is a subject matter that we could spend a lot of time on, and I was even thinking about asking you if you could even recall how many concussions you may or may not have had, but we'll have to table those topics and conversations for the next go around. Maybe we could circle back up during the season and get an update on how the Raiders are doing. So we got about 4 minutes left on the show. Let's talk about the 2017 team very quickly. The club didn't lose any starters in free agency. The Raiders' first-round pick Conley, the cornerback out of The Ohio State University, has passed his physical, been cleared to practice. Second-round pick made his debut last week against Dallas. Donald Penn is back with the team. Carr is getting his legs back underneath him. Mo, how far can this team go?
Well, it's a team that they can go as far as they want. I think we will. I think it's a young team. They've now played together, for 2-3 years. Injury is the one thing that you just can't coach against. So you would hope that the fates are with you there, but you have to still go out and play. Because of the structure of the league today and rosters, it's very difficult to have a lot of depth. I think in my opinion anyway, we have more talent around this team now than we've had in a long time, and we have a lot of pieces in place. Reggie McKenzie, our general manager, has done an outstanding job, I think, bringing talent in his player personnel department. We could talk about the front office side of things here, and just the way since Mr. Davis passed away, the way we have reorganized this organization and how we deal now is much differently than how it was in the past. Things will continue to change, Mike. Sometimes it's for the good, and sometimes it isn't quite so good for us. But one of the things we like to say to our former players, I do anyway, and that is when we call guys and invite them out to an event or let them know about something, and I always want to let them know that our main goal is to make sure that they know, and that we truly understand that not everything we do is going to be for everybody every time. But we just want everybody that wants to participate to know that, we're doing things, and they're more than welcome. And I think
how many alums do you have in the network with you right now?
Well, as far as having email addresses and current contact info, a mailing address, we're working with a pretty consistent number of about 475. And I'm sorry, excuse me, I wish it was 475, 375. And this is, guys these are not guys that just played for the Raiders. These are guys that played for other teams. And the interesting thing for us is, and we just had an alumni weekend at training camp just about a month ago. Yeah, a month ago yesterday. And we had about 107 guys we've counted, we think. These guys come in and out, so it's hard. But it was about 107 guys. Last year we had 92. And guys are interested. They want to come. They want to see one another. We had the NFL come out, and we did an informational seminar. I'm trying to jam a lot of stuff in here real quick.
Yeah, we actually got about 30 seconds left, and I hate to end this so abruptly, because this is such an interesting conversation. Maybe we can have you back.
Very well. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe we could have you back. We could resume this conversation, and better yet, if there are any Raider alums out there who have been out of touch with the team for a while, get a hold of Morris. Call over at the Raiders facility, connect with Morris, and get back there. I've spoken with a couple of my former clients, or clients who are former Raiders, I should say, about recircling up, and hopefully this network will grow. And let's circle back up with you. We've got a lot of emails here, by the way, saying great job, go Raiders. Will the Raiderettes be in Las Vegas, or do you select a new squad? Super Bowl or bust? I'm just reading them really quickly down the list here, but huge thank you to Morris Bradshaw. You've been fantastic. You rocked it. Let's do this again soon. Okay, Mo?
Let me know, Mike. Anytime, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, and see you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week for the Mike Abadir Show. Please tune in again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time for another show with Mike and his co-host, Gino Bacola, on the Voice America Sports Channel. Have a great week.